welcome to Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air, bringing you information about your library and your community. This evening my guest is Steve Tarter, who of course is from the Journal-Star, but his sideline is Film Noir, and we're back for the 10th anniversary of the Film Noir Festival. Hi, Steve.
Well, thank you. It doesn't seem possible, does it? It started with the library, though.
I know. I've been at the library 9 years, so I only missed year one.
Yeah, just 1 year, but no, it's become a regular thing.
I've been helping you publicize it ever since.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
And we always do the premiere at the library, and then it moves on to the Apollo Theater.
Just down the street. And this year we decided, in light of the 10th anniversary, this was a big show in our wonderful promotional mind. And so every show has "big" in the title, so we can
I noticed that when I was working on on things with you, that everything is big.
Yeah, everything is big.
And a really big show.
Yeah.
And I think we should back all the way up. If somebody somehow has missed Film Noir for the last 10 years, what is Film Noir?
Well, Film Noir is the title is sort of really stuck. That was given. A French critic, I guess, is credited with coming up with it. After the World War II, when obviously American films didn't get to Europe, there was kind of a bottleneck, and then they sent over all these films, so the critics were reviewing them, and they noticed that some of the American films were kind of dark, unlike the happy-go-lucky musicals that maybe many of us are used to, and they had a little bit of an edge to them, and they coined it film noir. And of course, this is an era when black and white, not every film was in black and white, but many were. And that's kind of stuck now as we fast forward to the 21st century. Now we look at film noir as sort of that period in the 40s and 50s when they made these films. Some of them would be classified as B movies. That is the first run movie of the set when people would go to the movies all the time. And you'd see a newsreel and a cartoon, and then you'd get your opening show, and then you get the main show. Of course, there wasn't TV then.
So you spend all day at the theater.
You go weekly, and all these films abounded. So that gives us a lot to choose from. But I think now you go online, and certainly there's many collections. Film noir is sort of a cult following, I guess. It's basically, I mean, if for lack of a better thing, it's those hard-boiled, that word seems to come up a lot, detective, crime type shows. And usually somebody is put in a position of something they didn't really deserve, and now they have to get out of it. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. So that's
not always a happy ending.
Not always a happy. And that was, of course, I think that's what makes film noir has given it legs. I mean, life, because many times, and of course it depends on the individual, but we look at old movies and we can't really identify with them. There's no cell phones, there's no computers. It's in black and white. They look at those old cars. It's almost like a distant reality. And I think some people lose that. Whereas the one thing it doesn't change over time, you still have corruption, you still have greed, you still have all the human emotions, romance and everything else, that doesn't really matter what era you're in. And that comes through in film noir.
Yeah. So. And there's always like a dame.
Oh, yes. Femme fatale. To keep using the French. And this was another kind of departure. Whether these things really originated with film noir is probably a matter for movie aficionados to discuss. But there were movies probably in the silent era that depicted women in roles other than the perfect homemaker and mother, because that's kind of become the. After all, TV in the 50s picked that up and made Harriet Nelson and Donna Reed. I mean, that became a model. So, they kind of lapsed back into that. But in film noir, the woman, you can be good or you can be bad. And some of the bad women are every bit as bad as the men and worse, and just as dangerous. Yeah. So it kind of is, I think, fair to everybody in that respect.
One of the things I always enjoy about these movies, too, is the fashions. And with so many of the recent TV shows like Mad Men have brought those fashions back into style. And you're seeing them in the stores now. And sewing people creating those clothes and hats. Maybe hats will come back. That'd be nice.
It would be. Well, they would probably do well with that because, the one thing you notice, the traditional film noir is they smoke a lot.
Yes.
And
A
they
lot of
wear,
cigarettes.
and all the men wear hats, and probably
Yeah.
most of the women. And that was the tradition of the day. But it is kind of fascinating. I think I've come to accept the movies, and I've seen a lot of these now over the years. I think what I said about the early era and the fact they're black and white, and it's transferred from today when you see these old films. That almost gives it a sense of reality to me, because you don't think of some director going, okay, roll it, and oh, stop, which is what is going on.
Yeah.
Obviously, these are movies, folks. They're not slices of real life. You actually get transported a little bit into that era, and that detective, and looking at Humphrey Bogart or whoever it is. So I think there's something that if you let it happen, can take you right back to that era, and whether or not you remember it firsthand, I don't, or you're a young person who's looking at all this for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the things, too, I can say about people say, well, we can get these collections, you can buy them on Amazon. A lot of them you can check out at the library. You can watch them at home. We have big TVs at home.
Sure.
But I'll tell you what, you do not have the big movie screens like we do in the digital sound as we do at the library and the Apollo.
Right.
And so you have that true movie-going experience, maybe one of the few places where, hopefully you'll stay off your cell phone, not be texting or Facebooking while you're there. But when you're at home watching on TV, the dog runs by, you can get up and leave, so you just don't get totally absorbed like you do. And I think that's why people enjoy seeing, and we've been showing a lot of movies of all kinds at the library.
Right. At the new auditorium.
Yeah, the new auditorium and at North Branch both have the big
Screens.
screens. Well, Lincoln Branch has one too, the big screens, the digital sound. And
That's great.
It's wonderful because it's almost like going
And the
to
price
the
is
theater.
right.
Yeah, the price is right. Free.
You mentioned cell phones. I happened to see a movie at local theater, not the Apollo, but the regular theater. And I haven't been to a show in a while, but I do enjoy movies. I went with my son, and we got there, unfortunately, early enough to see all the previews and everything else. They warn you or alert you about 3 or 4 times about cell phones.
Yes.
I mean, and they even have their own little skit where the guy is making the movie, and then there's a ring, and he turns to the audience and says, "What? We aren't entertaining enough for you?"
Yeah.
And the guy says, putting away his cell phone. So obviously that is a huge problem.
It is.
And and it's sad that kind of we don't have that problem at the Apollo, though. I mean, people bring cell phones, but we don't have to tell them. They're not. I mean, we hope that if it goes off, they just get out.
My favorite all-time cell phone warning was at a play, and they said, for every cell phone that rings, one car from the parking lot will be randomly towed.
Well, that's a fair deal.
Yeah, that was. So you can borrow that one if you need.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, maybe we should get down to
Sure.
business here and actually talk about what people can see this year.
Sure. Well, we start up, as you said, at the Downtown Library with Big Knife, with Jack Palance, and that is it's kind of a very hard look at Hollywood. And this was a movie made in '55, and it's got a very sharp edge to it, Big Knife. But it's a great leadoff, and of course, folks, and you're probably used to this because of the films that you said you run there. Even though the library normally closes at 6, this show will be at 7. And they just go right downstairs.
Yeah, we have it. We have it set up so that you can just go straight downstairs to see the show.
Right.
And of course, parking is free that time of night.
Right.
The parking lot's well lit. We have security cameras. We have security guards. So that all the concerns that come up that people are worried about getting downtown don't need to worry about any of those things. You are safe, and it is totally free right down to the parking.
That's Thursday, October 11th, and then the next weekend, the 12th and 13th, the next day, really, we just go down the street to the Apollo. We have Big Sleep, which is the Friday show, and again, these are all 7 o'clock starts. Of course, Big Sleep is a magnificent film. Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall, the Raymond Chandler, one that is considered one of the mainstays of film noir, of detective stories. It's a story that we won't even discuss the plot because no one really understands the plot, even the people that wrote it. William Faulkner was involved in the script. Others, it was an amazing thing. But it's a great movie, and just let it happen and follow along with Humphrey Bogart. Who's in virtually every scene.
Yeah.
So that's Big Sleep. That's the Friday, and I should mention that Norm Kelly will introduce that. we always have somebody introduce it, and Norm does a great job.
He makes a few little remarks about it.
He does, and what he does is not so much talk about the film, but what happened in Peoria in 1946, which is the year of this film. So he brings it home to our city. On Saturday, October 13th, we have Big Combo, which is Craig Shurtleff of ICC. He's on our board. He's a professor of English. He will introduce that film. Big Combo is another very good 55. Again, we're getting into the later stages of film noir by some counts, but it's just fascinating look at a policeman who's really torn between the girl he loves and trying to solve the case, and the girl unfortunately is involved with the mobster.
Of course,
there's his problem. So that's that one. Then we go the next weekend. Friday, October 19th is Big Heat, which is one of my favorites because Glenn Ford is in there, and he is again a detective. Big Heat. Fritz Lang is the director, and it's got one of the greats. I won't tell people because I hate it when people tell the plot.
Yeah, no spoilers.
No spoilers. Lee Marvin is the heavy in this show, and let's just suffice it to say that if we're on the ball, we'll have hot coffee at this show, and that's all I'll say.
All right.
And then we close it off on Saturday, October 20th, with Big Clock, which is just a it's kind of a film. It's film noir, and it's very suspenseful. Ray Milland has the lead in this, but it's also Charles Laughton is in this, and Charles Laughton plays the Rupert Murdoch media tycoon of the day, and it's just a fabulous movie. And it has many scenes that are quite light, that are funny. Elsa Lanchester, who's married to Charles Laughton, is in here and plays this giddy artist who runs through the show. So there's moments of, it's one of those great Hollywood films that combines suspense with a little bit of comedy. This is not a laugh-out-loud comedy, but it has lots of scenes. And another little note on that one, Harry Morgan, who we know from MASH and other things that he's done, never says a word. In the whole movie, he is the hitman or the henchman, and he is sinister. I don't think he smiles throughout the whole movie, but he is. You can see what a different role for him. If you remember him as the easygoing guy on MASH, Colonel Potter. So that's the other beauty of film noir is you see a lot of folks we see later in TV land in other roles. No better example than that is Perry Mason. Because he. I'm forgetting his name. Who played Perry Mason?
Raymond Chandler?
Raymond Burr.
Raymond Burr. Raymond somebody.
Yeah, we knew Raymond. Well, Raymond Burr, became America's greatest lawyer. And the Side of Right was the worst heavy you could imagine in film noir, in most of his film noirs. So he did a flip and made it to TV and changed his image. But that's our Film Noir Festival.
It's great to see people like Lee Marvin when they were young too.
Oh, yeah.
Because so many people now are familiar with them.
Right.
At the end of their career.
Right, and you see them, of course, in film noir. You see them in roles where sometimes they don't go too far with it because they might get knocked off in any scene. So there's always that element of surprise that I think makes these films stand up and hold their own over these years.
Yeah. Of course, our opening kickoff is free at the library, and then you have just a small charge for yours.
Right, we do it by donation, really, so folks can really pay what they want. But what we're asking is $5 for adults and $4 for seniors and students. And I should probably throw in Bill Knight will introduce Big Clock.
Okay.
Bill Knight from our board, and of course,
of course, he wrote a whole book about all kinds of movies.
Oh yeah, he's a great movie buff, and he writes all the flyers that we hand out down there. So. Folks can get a little background on it. And one thing I thought I'd introduce one of the films, Big Heat, this year. And again, when we talk about introducing, we're talking about a 10-minute show.
Yeah.
Very, very short. We don't want to take people away from the movie, but I thought I'd talk about radio noir.
Oh.
Because that's a genre that doesn't get discussed much. And we're talking about shows like, Dragnet, which started on radio, Suspense, a lot of your Private Eye shows. There's a whole slew of them that were playing in the 40s and 50s, alongside the movies.
People who listen to audiobooks now
absolutely.
Can identify with that, where, there's a lot of people, me for example, who I always have an audiobook playing in my car.
Oh.
And there's a lot of people who exercise, walk, do dishes, sew, whatever. they're doing to audiobooks, and I think you can see the appeal back
Sure.
when that was radio.
Right, and that's true. I mean, it lives on, and I think sometimes, the old business we used to, when I did a radio thing in this market, we talked about Music the Movies, which was a show without all those annoying pictures. So you can look at the movies two ways, and we love movies, but there is something to be said for the radio side, which is, and really set the pace for TV. 30-minute show, scripted, characters, and radio and movies really work hand in hand, because a lot of the shows, like Suspense, Lux Radio Theater, they would actually take films that were out of the day and do a radio version of them, with the very people that made the movie.
Wow.
I think Big Sleep was done on radio with
really?
with Bogart and Bacall. So some of those things can be quite interesting for people who, as you say, want to run through the park or drive somewhere and be able to check it out without taking your eyes off the road.
Yeah.
So
I'm always kind of amused by the pictures they show of that era with the whole family gathered around staring at the radio, and I think, is that
waiting for
really,
a picture.
Is that really the way they watch or listen to the radio, or were they doing
Right.
other, playing a card game or
Right.
something?
Where they spread out a little more.
Spread
too,
out
yeah.
a little more, not all just. They might have had to sit close if the radio wasn't getting a good signal. But
Yeah, I think that is funny.
that always cracks me up, and I know that they're showing that they're focused on the radio, but is that really what you did?
I mean, I think you flip it on and then you go about your business, really. Yeah.
So this may take you by surprise, but who do you think is the best known or the greatest film noir actor?
Oh, well, I think it has to be Humphrey Bogart. Only because, the one that's often credited when he played Maltese Falcon, Sam Spade in Maltese Falcon, and you can argue about it all day long with film buffs, but that's often credited as the first film noir. Now, there's other nominees, but that was 41. John Huston directed. And, of course, we've run that film. And, of course, that was a remake.
Yes.
Bogart actually was the third remake of Maltese Falcon.
Okay.
The Satan Takes a Lady was done in the mid-30s. And then Maltese Falcon, the first one, with Ricardo Montez.
I've seen that
Yeah,
one.
we played that at the Apollo. In fact, I think we did that for Peoria Reads when
We
Maltese
did.
Falcon was the book.
We played it for Peoria Reads, but I've actually seen it on TV.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, it pretty well follows the book and the one that we know so well from Bogey. But I think Bogart has it as the main guy, because he brought an element of toughness and sort of that I'm not going to concede anything, but at the same time, he's a little bit of a softie too, because he'd be fair.
He'd be fair.
He wasn't brutal just to be
to be brutal.
But no, I think he comes up a lot, and there's a slew of others. But no, I think you have to give Bogart and just the fact that now we know him so well, and he has his own place in Hollywood forever.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, in case somebody tuned in a little later, I want to go back and say that we've been talking about the 10th Annual Film Noir Festival, and it starts on Thursday, October 11th at 7 p.m. at the Main Library on the corner of Main and Monroe. All free, parking's free, security lights, security guards. The library's closed, but our auditorium will be open for that.
That's great.
And then we move to the Apollo Theater. Do you want to give the exact address in case someone somehow still doesn't know where it is?
Right, it's 301 Main Street, and it's right across from the courthouse. So right next to the Nut House. People, depending on what you're familiar with in downtown. But and that's Friday and Saturday, the 12th and 13th. We'll have Big Sleep and Big Combo. And then the following weekend, the 19th and 20th, we'll have Big Heat and finally Big Clock.
And everything's big.
Everything's big at the Apollo.
The 10th year.
Yeah, and you mentioned the the parking situation, and we tell people who come down to the Apollo sometimes, and we have our regulars that know this, but there are decks that are free at night. If people don't want to park on the street, you walk a little bit, for it. And also, if you want to avoid the stairs at the Apollo, you can park in the Niagara parking deck, which you enter if you come down Adams and just turn in right after ICC downtown. There's a deck there. That brings you right to if you go up the deck, up I think the second level, you enter the Apollo right there at the stage level. So you avoid the stairs. We probably can never promote that enough, because you know, who knows who's going, what time, and all that. But that's something we try to help people out with who don't want to tackle the stairs, because
the stairs are steep and narrow.
Well, and the Apollo is what's left of the Apollo is the old balcony.
Yes.
So that's why you know. It wasn't devised as a torture chamber. That's what's left of the theater, and it seats about 150 people, and you know, we're glad it's there.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, you know, we haven't talked about that in a while either, about the Apollo Theater and its history and how it got restored and how it is you're able to have a Film Noir Festival there.
Well, I think the credit of that, of course, Tom Leiter and his wife Barb Leiter. Tom's the attorney who owns that building. He and Barb restored that about 1990. What they did is they found, I mean, they knew it was there. I think the law firm took over that space, and they discovered that they had a sort of an area there. There were no seats or anything. Bats were reportedly flying around in there. And they took the time and trouble and expense of basically making a mini theater, restoring the balcony, and they've redone the plaster and repainted, put in a stage. Curtains are there, the seating is there, and of course it's had live shows in the Apollo. And there's oftentimes other things going on that I'm not involved with. Mary Sutherland is the office manager down there. She always tells me, you know, people don't realize how busy we are down here, because there'll be weddings on that stage. There'll be churches sometimes use it for services. So it's great to have a downtown center that's small enough. I mean, again, 150 seats is not going to accommodate everybody, but if it was bigger, it probably wouldn't be there, because look around at the other theaters that, you know, Peoria has such a great theater history, and a lot of these in the old days had, well, the Apollo itself had 900 seats in its heyday. Now that ended in '58, but there was a long, narrow theater, and they had the balcony. Well, that long, narrow theater disappeared in the '50s, or shortly after the '50s, with a parking deck and all the rest. You can go down the list, the Palace, and of course the Madison is sort of hanging in the breeze now. We hear bad things about what might happen there, but the rest...
How many seats does the Madison have, or do you even know?
Well, no, they'd be 2,000. The Palace, the Madison, and the Rialto all had 2,000, maybe 2,000 plus, 2,100.
I mean, as a native Peorian, I grew up going to all of those theaters. I can remember being dropped off, you know, by a parent, or as I got older, taking the bus downtown to go to the movies, and I had no idea 2,000 people. Well, but they were full.
Oh yeah. Well, of course, it was a different era then, when we were talking about, you know, when a film came, everyone went to see it, and nowadays, you know, you got the theaters with the many different mini theaters. You might have a dozen shows playing in any given time, and the crowd is scattered across them, and so it's very segmented, and we understand why. It's a very much more diverse business, but with all the TV and the satellite and the cable.
Well, I have so many friends who you said you want to go to a movie, because I still love the theater experience, and they go, no, I'm going to wait for it to come out on DVD or pay-per-view or whatever, because they just really don't want to leave home.
I know.
But and you know, it can be costly depending on what you, but I know some of the theaters now that are starting to serve actual meals, and and that makes it a whole different experience, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, one thing and in that vein, you mentioned that the last night, the Saturday, October 20th, to kind of close it out, we thought we'd celebrate a little bit with a noir theme, and Mackinac Valley Winery has several new wines out, each one noir, and I think one is like a fruit wine, another one is chocolate, and these, of course, this is the thing nowadays. So we're going to maybe have some of that available for a little sampling.
Sampling of
noir
wines.
Get that person out of the house and into the theater, because we do have, I should mention too, we have free popcorn at the Apollo. So that's our little. We don't give you a big huge basket. It's a regular sized cup, and you can
like
have
you
more.
Used to get in the old days when
we ration it, but
was originally out in the theater.
Remember the little boxes of popcorn? I mean that 3 handfuls and you're done. But people seem to like that. In fact, when we have a problem with our popcorn maker, or I'm slow at making it, we hear about it, because it's only, where's the popcorn? That's more important than the movie sometimes. So we try to accommodate the public.
Do you think you have a regular clientele?
I think we do. I think we have a nice group of regulars. I know a lot of folks, not always by name but by sight, that come, and they enjoy these shows. And it's like you said, I think while many people have gotten into the habit of staying at home, I think others, once they find a nice venue, they're comfortable with, the price is right. They haven't been put off by parking problems, because I think that's something that, and I'm glad you addressed that. I think that's something that people overdo. They think, oh, I'm going to be downtown, and well, it's not like, you can make the case, I suppose, if you've never been to Chicago and don't know what real problem parking is.
Yes.
Peoria, I guess, if you're used to shopping center parking at all times, downtown Peoria can pose a little bit of a problem during the day. Because if you're looking for that spot right in front of where you're going, it may not always be there.
Yeah.
But at night, let's face it, it's readily available. The meters aren't checked. You can go.
Yeah, you can go. And
so we encourage people
safe.
to come downtown.
Yeah, I know people are frightened by perceived violence in Peoria, but that's not violence that's just random people out on the street at night. It's violence directed from one person to another.
Right, and that usually comes later.
Yeah, it's later. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's no film noir at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, there's real film noir going on, real noir activity. But that's not what we're about. We're about the film stuff, and it's I can tell you right now, all the shows we've done at 7 o'clock on a Saturday, it's been very, very, very
peaceful
good, peaceful,
and comfortable to come to.
Yeah, I go out on the street. In fact, I'm looking for people. It's empty.
Oh,
so
thanks so much for.
Well, thank you for having me. Every year we love having the library.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see this 10th anniversary showing. So
it's big.
Yeah. Well, everybody, if you need more information about the Film Noir Festival or what shows are up there, the information's on the library website. The Apollo's done a good job of getting the information out. We have posters around town. Starts on Thursday, October 11th and runs through Saturday, October 20th. And it's a very affordable, easy thing to do and really enjoy on the big screen with the digital sound and get to see these movies the way they were meant to be seen. So we'll see you next week on Information Please. Thank you.